Hello everybody, welcome back. This is Trinity Tech Academy where we learn, build and aim. Today we're going to continue our practical intro to Python. We'll continue the first module, which is the basics. Today we're going to talk specifically about input and output. Today we're going to write a short program called the Hello World program. We're going to talk about sending in input, getting input, displaying output, comments, and lastly we're going to talk about variables. So let's begin. By my left I have my Visual Studio Code editor set up already, and by my right I have a code snippet of the Hello World program we're going to be writing. So I'm going to walk you through step by step on each line in the program code. Now before I type in any code into my Visual Studio Code editor, let me open my terminal and demonstrate a little bit on the command line. So I'm using a Linux distro. To open my terminal, I hold down Ctrl, Alternate, plus T, and there I have it. Going to enlarge my terminal a bit. Now from my terminal, I'm going to type in the command python3 to activate the Python shell. So you can see I have Python 3.12.3 already on my Linux machine. So this is equally same as the Visual Studio Code, but it's a direct command line where you can just type in code directly and have your output instantly instead of writing in an IDE where you have a file before you run it at once. So quickly, I'm going to type the same line of code I have from the code snippet, text, hello world. Now I have that line of code and I click on enter. Now as you can see, nothing has happened. That is because we haven't given any command to actually print out or to actually show us the result of the line of statement we have written. So basically what we have by the right here, text, this is what we call a variable, which we're going to talk more later in this class. And this is what we call a value. Now the entire line or statement, programmatically, this is what we call a declaration and initialization. The text here, we are declaring it as a variable, and the value here, which is hello world, we are initializing it into the variable. So this variable holds a value which is hello world. And quickly, I would like to say this value is of a type. We have what we call types in programming. We have the strings, we have integers, we have float. So I wouldn't dive into that in this class. We're going to talk about types in subsequent classes, but just know that this is a string data type. Why? Any text enclosed by two quotation is known as a string data type. So this is a string value, hello world, and it is passed into this variable just as it is. Now, for me to actually see this value or have it printed on my screen, I need to use a print, and the function of print is just like the name implies. It prints out something to your screen or to your output. Now, inside the print, I need to pass in what we call an argument. The argument I will pass into the print function is going to be displayed on the screen. Now, I will type in the variable which I've declared earlier and assign the value of type string hello world into. I will type it into the print function as an argument, text. Now when I click on enter, there we have our string value on the screen. Now what if I pass print without any argument and I click on enter? An empty line is going to be displayed. Now you can do a lot of things from the terminal, but basically I just want to show you that you can equally run some snippets of code right from your terminal just to test your program or to do simple calculations. For instance, I may like to add two numbers. I'll say add 1 plus 1. I have nothing printed on the screen. That is because I haven't given the command to do that. So the same way, I will print, I'll supply add as an argument, and there we have the result of our addition operation 2 printed on the screen. Back to our Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to be typing in each line of code from the code snippet into the Visual Studio Code while I explain what each line does. We have text. Text here is a variable. The variable holds a specific kind of value. Now remember in our introductory course where I talked about scalars and non-scalars. Now text can be scalar, text can equally be non-scalar. We said scalars are objects that hold a single value, while non-scalars are objects that can hold multiple values. So from what we have on the code snippet, we're going to use the assignment operator. This is known as the assignment operator because we are assigning, or we're going to assign a value to the variable text. So I assign the string value hello world to the variable text. Now I was talking about scalars and non-scalars. So this is an example of a scalar. Basically this text is a scalar object. Why? Because it is holding just a single value. Now there are some other kinds of values we can equally assign, but we wouldn't be talking about that in this class. The next line of code is to use the reserved word, the function print, and supply the argument text into it. So this is basically the simplest, or just like it is always a tradition to write this program. By writing these 2 lines of code, you have a program which is called the Hello World program. Now, for us to actually see the result of these 2 lines of code, we need to run this file. As you can see, this file is saved as class examples.py. So for me to run this file, I can just go to the top right corner of my Visual Code where I have run. By the side, you have other options: run Python file, run file in dedicated terminal, run current file, and so on and so forth. So I will just click on the button by the right just to run the Python file directly. And when I click on that, you have your result shown on the terminal. This is my terminal beneath the Visual Code editor. So you can see this is Hello World. Now I can run this Python file from my terminal as well. I can open up my terminal again, Ctrl-Alt-T to open my terminal. Let me increase it a bit. So I can navigate to the specific location where this class file is stored. Now you can see this is the directory of my file on desktop. It is on desktop on the folder TreeTech Academy, courses, intro to Python, script, and then class examples.py. So that's where my script is, or that Python file is located. For me to actually run the Python file, I need to navigate back to that directory on the terminal, then execute a command from there. Quickly, I can check the current directory I'm in by typing the command pwd, that is print working directory. So I am on home Trinity. I can equally list the folders on the current directory. So where we need to change directory into is desktop. So I type cd to desktop, that is change directory to desktop. In my desktop, I can equally list content of my desktop, and I will cd into Trinity Tech Academy. So I'm changing directory to script. That is where my Python file is. So let me clear the directory for clarity. So here I can list to check the content of the script folder. So I have class examples.py, hello world.py. So the program I'm using, or the program I want to execute, is the class examples.py. So what do I do from here to run that file from my terminal? I need to type in Python 3 followed by the name of the file I want to execute. Now I'll type in class examples.py, enter. So you can see I have the same output from my terminal, which is hello world. So that is how to run your file from the terminal. You need to navigate to that exact location on your system directory, then use the Python command plus the name of the file to that program or to execute that Python file. The next line we have from our code snippet is print. Just like I showed you earlier from the terminal, what print does, an empty print statement does, is that it prints an empty line of code after the subsequent one. So if I run this code once again, I Ctrl S to save my file, then I run the Python file. You can see this time around, I have hello world and a space. That is because I've issued a print command with no argument included. Next on our code snippet, we have the line new text, which is a variable. So let me explain what this line does. Now this input is also a function. It's a keyword too. This line of code, new text, which is our variable, and then we have the function or the keyword. This is a function and it's also a keyword because you can't use it as a variable name, but it's actually a function. What the input function does is it takes in input from the standard input. So when you pass this as a value to the variable new text, it gives you room to actually take input from the standard input. And our standard input in this Visual Studio Code or using our IDE, the standard input is our terminal. Let me quickly clear the terminal here so we can have more clarity. So we are passing in input function as value to our new text variable. So when I run this code, it will need me to actually input something or input a value directly from the terminal. Any input you pass to the input function is going to be a string by default. So now, the argument we are passing into the input function is just a hint for the user to actually know, okay, this is what I need to do. It says enter your text. Now quickly let me just run this program while I explain further. So I'll Ctrl S to save my file and then run. You can see we have hello world as our output, an empty line, and right there we have enter your text with a cursor waiting for us to actually enter a value. So any value you enter from the terminal here is going to be stored as a string value into the new text variable. So I'm going to supply a value. Let's type in hello world again. Now you can see nothing has been done. We just have no error. So this actually means no error, right? So there is no output after that. Why? That's because we haven't passed the command to actually print out the result or the value of new text. So before we see our output, let's print an empty line. Then we print the value of new text to standard output. I'll save and then I'll run the program. I'll type in hello world as my value, enter. There you have it. Now, after the prompts, we have an empty line, which is this, and then we have our hello world. So basically, this is how we send in input and we receive output in a basic program just like the hello world. Now let's talk about some crucial issues when sending input into the computer. The first thing is casing. Case. We say Python is a case-sensitive language. As such, print or lowercase is different from print with a capital or uppercase P, and it's also different from print with an all uppercase letters. They are all different. So it is advisable to always stick to naming your variable with lowercase. Next, we're going to talk about space issues. Spaces matter at the beginning of lines, but not elsewhere. So you can see from our program, we don't have any space before any variable or before any function name. There is no issue with that. So at the beginning, you don't include any space. You can't have any space at the beginning of your variable or your function names as it is in our program. Now, you can have as much space as you want here. It doesn't matter. You can have as much space you want here. It also doesn't matter. But at the beginning, you can't have a space there. That has violated the Python syntax. You can actually have a space after the print or anywhere else, but at the beginning, you can't have a space there. Now next is indentation. Indentation has a special meaning in Python. Indentation is actually used in Python to differentiate between different code segments. So as you can see here, we don't have any indentation. What we mean by indentation is using your tab key, you can indent this, and this is normally by standard 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? This is also, if I use space, this is also 4 spaces, right? So that's what indentation means. We don't have any indentation in this program, but subsequently, when we get to programs that have indentation, I'm going to explain in detail what indentation actually does in Python programming. Now let's talk about comments. You see, comments are human readable text. The interpreter ignores any comment in a program code. There are 2 types of comments. We have single line comments and the multi-line comments. So here on my program, you can see earlier I've commented out this section of the program. So when you use the hash symbol, it indicates a single line comment. So when I delete that, I have my line of code back. When I insert it back, it comments out that line. So the interpreter will actually ignore all this line preceded with a hash symbol. Now we have another kind of comment, which is the multi-line comment, which can actually span through 3 or more lines. So you have 3 codes, something like this. This is a multi-line comment. So this is a multi-line comment. We have 3 lines commented using these 3 codes. You can also add single line comment after your program statement or expression. Maybe here you might want to add a comment here saying user enters the first number. Here you say user enters the second number. Lastly, we're going to talk about variables. We say a variable is like a container, and the syntax or the structure of a variable is you have your variable name and the value, just like we've seen earlier. But here, let me just say number. I assign it the value 1. So this is the variable name and this is the value. The major purpose of a variable is to remember a value from one part of a program so that it can be used in another part of the program. Just like we've seen earlier, I can also define another number, let's say number 2, and assign the value 5. So anywhere I want to use this number 1, I can just call the variable number and the value is going to be there for me. So let's say add, I can call number variable, I can call number variable plus number 2. Instead of using this value 1 and value 5, I just call the variable number and number 2. And I do my addition there, print, add, and there you have it. So if I run this program, once again, you have your 6 result. Lastly, on variable, let's look at some of the simple rules or some of the rules for variable names. The first rule is variables can contain letters, numbers, and the underscore. As you can see, This is all alphabet. This is alphanumeric. And you can also have an underscore. I can define another variable as number 3. It's also accepted. Then the second rule is they cannot contain spaces. You can do something like number 4 equal to 5. That's going to give you an error. As you can see here, it's underlined. So you can't have spaces between your variable names. The next rule is they cannot start with a number. You can say 4 number equal to 5. You can't start a variable name with a number. Case matters. Message and message are different, okay? So when you have something like, if I clean this, let's say you want, okay, we already have number here, number which is assigned 1. You can also define another variable as number starting with an uppercase N. They are two different things. So case actually matters. You can have another variable, all case, capital letter. This is also accepted. So, but you need to take note, as you can see, after typing an uppercase variable, it highlights it with a blue color. So this is a constant. This is something you might want to do in some programs, but here, what a constant actually means is this number is a constant. Somewhere in your code, you can actually change its value at the course of your program run. So that's why it's highlighted number, right? So you can also name your variable using what we call the camel case by starting with an uppercase N, lowercase u, uppercase M, lowercase b, uppercase E, and lowercase r. So this is what we call the camel case. So this is a camel case. It's just about style. So with this, we've come to the end of today's class, and I'll see you in the next class. Thank you.